Hi, my name is Hendrikus DeVaan and I'm coming to you from my current home in Budapest, Hungary. In July 20th, 2011, I finished a script for a short film called Disappear. Now, I was going to do this as a stop-motion film and it was going to be a 6-month project, but it soon grew into a 2.5-year-long journey. Disappear is my big debut as a director. It's the first film that I'm happy to put out there and have people see, and it's been very well received. It's the first work that I've done that I'm actually proud of, I guess. I think it's largely up to interpretation what it's about. I find that depending on people's profession and where they are in life, the film speaks to them in different ways. I mean, to me, it's about that sort of journey of becoming a creative professional. So, you know, deciding that this is what I want to do. I don't want to do the 9-to-5 grind and have a traditional career. It's about sort of deciding that I don't want that. Like I just have this sort of one focus, and I have to completely remove myself from one world to be able to embrace the other world in its entirety. So it's a stop-motion animated film. The thing is, I'm not an animator by trade at all. I'm trained in live action primarily. I've worked mostly on live action sets. I did a music video for a friend of mine, Alex Sikowski, where he was doing a stop-motion film, and I came in for the last 2 weeks of production for that. And I got hooked on stop-motion. There's something kind of magical about it. You know, you take these inanimate things, these raw materials, these, you know, wood and clay and plaster, and it's almost like playing God to an extent. You get to take all these things and make a reality, make a world, and bring it to life. Yeah, I got started. I blocked out the film. I did the storyboards, and then I started pre-production. I was living in a small apartment in Wellington, New Zealand, and I started making stuff for the film. I was making molds in my kitchen. It got to the point where I was running out of space, and I was running out of space fast. So I moved back to Taranaki, New Zealand, and my dad allocated me some space in his engineering workshop where I built a purpose-built studio, which would then become my home for the coming 2 years. So a big part of the reason why I actually decided to do animation as opposed to live action is because I didn't have any money to do the film. And I mean, I do enjoy the medium of animation, but it was never really something that I thought I would do professionally. And what shooting an animation allowed me to do was to take something that I lacked and use it to my advantage. So I didn't have any money, but I had a lot of time. So I made this film over 2.5 years, which is a long time to spend on a 4-minute long film. It was cool. Like, I could take my time with things, like really put a lot of thought into every element of production design, because I didn't have a crew. I did the whole thing by myself. Yeah, I had to think a lot about, you know, what colors things should be. Even though it's a black and white film, you know, the colors still affect the overall look because you've got tones and textures and things filmed differently. I made all the props myself, all the furniture myself, and that also allowed me to choose what I thought would, you know, to sort of fit visually and help tell the story, as opposed to just having things that are relatively arbitrary. Because when you're shooting in live action and you have no budget, you just take whatever you can get. Whereas with this, I could very specifically choose every little thing, like down to the painting on the walls and his costume, props, the layout of the apartment, the sort of overall art direction of the film was completely in my control, which is nice. You know, it's almost unheard of at a project of this level, and by working in animation, it really allowed me to fully explore the avenue of filmmaking, which has helped me grow a lot as a filmmaker. Because now when I work in a live action set and I'm working with an art director and a set dresser and a costume department, and you know, I can be a lot more articulate and a lot more specific about the certain things I'm looking for, and I can probably be a lot more helpful to them with my answers now. So a big inspiration for the film was I saw this short clip. Because I was getting into stop motion. I was, you know, watching a lot of clips online, and I came across this guy called Misha Klein, and he'd been working on this short film for 2 years or something, and there was this 30-second long segment on his website, like a teaser trailer for his film called Fred. But I watched this 30-second clip. I must have watched it 20 times or something, and I just sort of became obsessed with it. And I ended up contacting the guy and said, "Hey, look, can I see the film?" And he sort of thought that I was one of the people that he promised to show the film to. He was, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I hadn't sent it to you yet." And I said, "No, I mean, I'm just a big admirer of your work. And we ended up starting a dialogue, started talking about animation as a performance art. Because stop motion animation as opposed to 2D or 3D, because with 2D and 3D you're working pose to pose and then you do your in-betweens, but stop motion animation is all forward. It's a performance art. It's almost like theatre. You can't go back and tweak things. It's all moving straight forward. And because it's so time consuming, you generally only really have time to do one take of each shot. Because I mean, the first shot of the film's 40 seconds long, and it took me a week to animate, a week of full-time days. And because you're animating between 3 and, on a really good day, I think I hit maybe 15 seconds, but it's really around 6 to 7 seconds a day that you're animating. We talked a lot about sort of Michael Chekhov technique. Yeah, it's amazing because he's definitely one of my favorite animators working, and I think a lot of the reason for that is because of his approach. It's a very unique approach that he has. Just the performance aspect of it and the detail that comes through because of that, and enjoys sort of textural movement. Because a lot of the really high-end stop-motion stuff now is perfectly smooth and it looks almost like 3D animation, which is great. I mean, it's amazing work. But for me, I enjoy the textural aspect of stop motion, like the slight jitteriness of the movement. Because I shot this film at 12 frames per second. But even, Misha was saying that he even likes 6 frames per second, or he shot Fred at 18, which is still less than 24. And there's a certain feeling that you get, this slight jittery movement in it. It's enough that you get the sort of gesture. It's very gestural as opposed to sort of photorealistic. I guess it's almost a little bit expressionist maybe in movement. It's very hard to articulate exactly. Yeah, so I made everything myself from scratch. There were a few items like the phone, the microwave, the refrigerator that I bought and modified. I think the fridge was a Barbie fridge. The microwave was a sort of like a high-end dollhouse accessory that I sort of pulled apart and modified and made functional, and cut a hole in the back and shone a light through so that it would illuminate when it turned on and off. But there's this whole sub-community of people that collect action figures, hyper-realistic, and they've got really high-end props, and it's all super expensive stuff. I never even realized this sub-community existed before I did the film. But that's where I got his costume from, that's where I got the phone from, that's where I got his briefcase from, and I bought all this stuff, and then I sort of, the suit, I tailored it to suit the character, and the phone I altered to make slightly more realistic, and the briefcase I changed up a bit. But it's I had sort of base things to work from, but literally everything else in the film is completely handmade. The set's all made from MDF and 2x2s, and it's pretty solid construction. I mean, the whole thing, when it's put together, I can stand on top of the set, like it holds my weight. And the way I built it was, the 4 walls were built in 6 sections, and then the floor was one solid section, and the ceiling was 2 separate sections, and I could take any number of sections out, and the set was so solid that it would stay completely intact, so I could take out any section of the set that I needed to light it, and reach in to animate, of course. Because when I was first building it, I thought I was completely and utterly over-engineering it, but that wasn't the case at all. The dove, for example, that's in the film for maybe 3 seconds. That took about, between other things, maybe about a week to make or something. There's this tiny, tiny, tiny little ball and socket armature in there that I machined on a big milling machine. And then I, covered it in an epoxy putty, and all of the feathers are actually real feathers. They're all cut down from full-size real feathers. There's about 100 hand-laid feathers on the dove to add that, just that little bit of realism to it. The rabbits are all articulated. The fur is all, put on there by hand, and that was about a week worth of making. I had to sculpt out of clay and to make molds, and then I had to do the latex pouring into the molds around the aluminum armatures, airbrush it, do the fur. I also had to build a motion control rig. I was doing my camera movements manually at the start, and they were okay, but it was very difficult to concentrate on both the animation and the camera movements at the same time, as well as I wanted to do some more complex camera movements and some much smaller, more elegant movements, and it was just not possible on the manual motion control rig. So I built a Arduino driven motion control rig, which powered some stepper motors, and it was a 3-axis rig, so it had dolly, pan and tilt. It took me about 3 months to do because I really had no idea what I was doing. I had to teach myself how to use Arduinos, I had to teach myself how to solder, a lot of troubleshooting. It didn't work for a month straight. I had no idea what was wrong with it. But eventually it started working, and I think I got some really nice shots with it. So I made the film entirely by myself right up until the very end, until I brought in Lily Unsub to do the sound design and musical score. Lily is a electronic music producer in New Zealand. I don't think people realize quite how much work a lot of this is. I mean, it took me 2.5 years to do. I think realistically of full-time work, it was maybe about a year's worth of full-time work in there. Yeah, I always liked making things with my hands. Like it doesn't really matter necessarily what it is. I just like creating things, and eventually that moved into making little videos and, you know, dabbling in music. I mean, I'm certainly not a musician, but anything that's sort of creating something purely with your hands and your, you know, like a vision to make something, and then to be able to share that with people, you know, that's what I enjoy doing. I mean, I've been working in the film industry sort of on and off since I was about 17. Because I wasn't as active in the film industry, it's given me the opportunity to work in quite a few different departments. So I've worked makeup, grip department, lighting department, camera department. I've worked as a colorist, I've worked as an online editor, I've worked as a director, I've worked as an actor, I've worked as an extra. I composed the score for one of my friend's short films. I've had a very fortunate experience to be able to do all these different things. Yeah, so working in all these departments is really good, because then when someone comes to me and asks me something, we can work together a lot more efficiently to achieve the same sort of overall vision. So my film premiered in 2014 at Brody Underground Cinema in Budapest, Hungary. It was nice to have that sort of intimate screening as the first screening of the film. And a few weeks later I released it online, and then it started getting into festivals. So the first festival I attended was Shuffle Festival in London, which is curated by Danny Boyle. That was a really amazing experience. I'd never been to London before, and I went to the festival and they showed my film, and then the final night came and my film was called, and it turned out that I won the Young Filmmaker Award at the festival. So that was really humbling. I got to meet Danny Boyle, I got to have a good chat with him, and really nice guy, and that was sort of my first sort of verification of what I'd done. Like, people liked my film, and my film started getting into a few more festivals, and eventually I got the email saying that my film got into Mill Valley Film Festival and that I was welcome to come to a tour of Pixar Studios, and I couldn't afford to go. I had no money. I normally never vent on Facebook, but I put a post on Facebook saying, you know, I got into Mill Valley Film Festival, I get a tour of Pixar, but I can't go, this sucks. And about an hour later I get an email from Tim Young from YSOP, and he says to me, we'll get you there. And I said, yeah, thanks, that's amazing, but even if I get there, you know, I can't afford to make my way around, so don't worry about that, we'll get you there, make sure you've got a place to stay, make sure you've got some wheels. Wow, you know, like, just took a while to sink in, you know, it was crazy. So 2 weeks later, I was in Columbia, Maryland, and I met Tim Young, and I hung out with him for a few days. And I met their financial advisor, Mark, and had a really good time. We went to Washington, D.C., and saw the Lincoln Memorial, and saw the sights. I ate a buffalo burger. I ate lots of Americana. It was an amazing time. I really enjoyed myself. And then I jumped on the plane and I flew to LA. I stayed with a good friend of mine, Dan Marks, who's a Emmy award-winning editor. And he showed me around LA. I went to Venice Beach and went to Santa Monica Pier. And the next day, bright and early, I jumped in the car and I drove 430 miles north to Mill Valley. And the next day I went to the festival. And it was great. Like, it was just such an amazing experience. So we went to Pixar, and it was really, truly mind-blowing. I mean, we got a private tour. You know, it's not open to the public, and they took us through the various departments, and we went to the screening room, we went to the animation department, went through the development department where all the maquettes and the sculptures are, and eventually we ended up in the story department. So I got to meet the directors of Brave, the director of Monsters University, and the head of the story department. I think the whole trip to Mill Valley, that 1 hour we spent in the story department was worth the whole trip alone. It was just the way Pixar constructs their stories and puts it all together, and really it's amazing. I mean, basically what they say is the secret ingredient to all of their stories is time, you know, like you can't rush out a story, not stories the way that they do them, you know, like they have a writer or a small team of writers, and then they have these meetings where they bounce all their ideas off of all the other writers, and it can take 4 years in development, and they're just constantly bouncing ideas until they have a story that they're truly happy with and they truly believe that works. And I think it's really amazing how they do it. It was very inspiring. It just completely blew my mind. It was amazing. So my film screened at Mill Valley Film Festival at the Sharp 4K Art of Amazing screening, and it got really well received. It was great. I talked to a lot of people at the reception afterwards. It was really great to see it on such a big screen in 4K, and to be with all the other filmmakers watching it. And the next night there was a filmmakers party, so meeting Aronofsky was a really big deal for me. I mean, just earlier that year I'd met another one of my huge heroes, Danny Boyle. I mean, I remember watching 28 Days Later 20, 30 times and, you know, studying that film. I got to meet these two directors who really had such a huge impact and such a huge influence on my career. I met Jason Isaacs and Wes Bentley. I spoke to both of them for probably close to an hour, and it was really great to meet some really well accomplished actors, and to sort of be able to talk craft, and very down to earth and very, very personal. It was that was a very good experience for me. So my last day in LA, I got to spend some time with Misha Klein, who was a big part of the reason why I did this film in the first place. In fact, the film wouldn't have existed without his input. And it was just such an amazing experience for me to be able to meet my hero, you know, to meet someone who I've been looking up to for all these years and who's been helping me out so much. So the film's been getting a little bit of press. Peter Lord, the director of Pirates, Band of Misfits, one of the directors at Aardman, he watched my film and he really enjoyed it. There was an article in the Huffington Post. There was an article in Taranaki Daily News, including a stuff.co.nz video piece for the film. So I've got a few more projects on the cards now. I'm in final development for a script which will be a feature film, an American feature film. I'm currently writing an animated script. I'm writing a science fiction film. Everything's still in early stages, but I very much embraced this lifestyle, and this is what I want to be doing with my life. I can't imagine doing anything other than making films and telling stories. This is what I want to do, and this is what I will do until I die. So for any of you sitting at home that are thinking about doing a project or something that you're really passionate about, or not sure about following your dream, I mean, all I can say is go for it. Definitely, it's hard. You have to give up a lot of things, but if you're truly passionate about something, like what Nikola Tesla said, you know, it's nobody can feel the same joy as an inventor or a creator can feel. You know, there's something so special about coming up with something and then realizing it and being able to send that out into the world. It's such an amazing feeling. And honestly, if you have something that you're passionate about and you want to do, just do it, embrace it.